process, and we have no deal in sight that will be cobbled together to allow this legislation to pass and others that is supposed to be coming via the legislative stream. That is my primary concern. For anybody to expect that a government will sit down with an opposition and adopt the crime-fighting policies of the opposition, they're living in la la land.
Mr. Figueroa, I'm just going to ask you to pause for a second. We actually have to take a very quick break, but when we return, we'll continue the conversation. My apologies, sir. We'll be right back after this. What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. As is with technology, sometimes you've got to just give it a bit of a break. As we return, Mr. Darius Figueroa is with us still via Zoom. Thank you, sir, for being with us this morning. In regard to what we were mentioning before we had to take that break, it seems as though the approach by government to help the crime situation in TNT in particular is a legislative agenda. That's the only proposals that we have seen. What are your thoughts in regards to that? Has that proven to be successful in any way at all?
There is a dire need at present for a legislative agenda addressed to the specific task of reforming the national security apparatus to insist that this reformulated and weaponized national security apparatus becomes fit for purpose in light of the threat posed to the social order of Trinidad and Tobago in the 21st century. At present, our national security apparatus is still configured on a colonial model. And transnational organized crime is rapidly evolving. If you need a more potent example than the cyber security attacks that is in the news every day in Trinidad and Tobago, that is a transnational organized crime operation. And if they are now targeting your cyber ecosystem, that indicates to you the level of the threat that they are posing to Trinidad and Tobago. So you now have to rapidly legislate the means by which to upgrade your national security apparatus, to make it relevant to this threat, and to ensure, most of all, its integrity. Because remember, we can never forget the resources that transnational organized crime manipulates in order to corrupt a state.
Has the counterproductive relationship between oppositions and governments, both past, particularly present, only exacerbated such situation?
Yes, what is happening to us is that the politics of race has failed this country. Because at a most perilous time in our history, the nature of the politics is so adversarial, resolutely defined by two maximum leaders who are constantly at each other's throat, playing the game of brinksmanship, seeking for some perception of scoring points on each other. So it is clearly apparent, both sides are emitting this position, that in order to sit down and come to deals that will enable the creation of this legislative framework that we so need and of dire necessity in this country, one has to surrender to the other publicly.
Mr. Figueroa, we both know that's not something that will happen, because bear in mind as well, in the context of the conversation, we are also just 2 years away from a general election.
Well, the question is the general elections due to come next year?
Well, you're not the first. You're not the first individual who has suggested such.
Because the signs are now becoming legion every day that the campaigning has commenced. So what is going to happen, and what I am totally afraid of, is that the talks collapse, the legislative agenda collapses, and the politics of race now proceeds to say, we are getting jacked and we are getting ripped off because this side refused to support that side, as if that is supposed to bring comfort to my life.
But Mr. Figueroa, again I say, whilst all that you are suggesting is absolutely true, and I agree with much of what you've put forward on the conversation this morning, bringing comfort to our lives does not seem to be on any political party's agenda.
Well, because what has happened is that the politics of race in Trinidad and Tobago from 1956 to now has granted the politicians impunity.
Right, okay, so fair enough. So they've not built on any system. They've not even built on a foundation of independence. We've only exploited a system which existed before. I understand that. But then to what extent is it our fault as citizens for constantly falling into that trap?
That is a complex answer, sir. A complex answer to explain the voting behavior over the years. But we have reached a situation now where, when faced with this systematic potent threat from transnational organized crime, the politics of race that we love to partake of since 56 to now has failed dramatically to be able to organize and to manipulate the requisite strategies and operations to ensure public safety. It has failed us.
You see, the thing is, Mr. Figueroa, it's failed us as a nation as a whole. It hasn't failed political systems or political parties, precisely why it possibly still is the most beneficial outcome. But it's a very interesting point that you're making, the link of our nature of politics and race to that of national security.
Yes, because the politics of race demands a specific type of behavior, a specific type of political activity. And what we have seen from 1962's independence to now is that when faced with a potent threat, it simply kicks the can down the road. And we have been kicking the can down the road from the second half of the 1960s when the Colombian model arrived in Trinidad. Until today, we continue to kick the can down the road and we constantly look for scapegoats.
So, Mr. Figueroa, then, if that be the case, how do we now resolve this issue? How do we now solve this problem that has plagued TNT for decades, pre-independence?
Well, the solution lies in the hands of the masses. Because the only way that there's going to be change, there has to be a change in the way we vote. It now has to become based on putting my interests before what they love to tell us about the interests of the race. But the interest of the race that they love to tell us is always defined to the benefit of the politicians.
That's long term. In the immediate short term, especially in regards to crime, and as you mentioned, transnational crime, what are the proposals to resolve this issue?
In the immediate short term, what we need, like yesterday, is a simultaneous refurbishing, reforming of the national security apparatus and the judiciary, because the constipated judiciary cannot continue.
Are you of the opinion that in regards to the judiciary and even the national security apparatus, which we understand has remained a certain way and in a certain form, are you of the opinion that it is because the individuals who are at the helm, the decision makers, are lazy, clueless, have no idea what to do? Has it been deliberate?
Well, remember, a politician lives on a 5-year horizon. And ultimately, they will continue to use a formula that works for them, which is the politics of race. But that therefore precludes them of undertaking risky interventions that they insist will rock their chances because it rocks the boat. But all the alarm bells are going off in this country, and apparently people definitely the most single potent alarm bell that is most worrying is what is going on in the prisons. Because when you have transnational organized crime working in your country and your prison system is in that condition, you are presented a haven for transnational organized crime to take that prison system and to turn it into one that exists in Ecuador and El Salvador and all over the place.
Indeed, sir, indeed. We are out of time. You've really opened my mind to a wider topic than I was expecting this morning. So I thank you for that, sir. And I'd like for us to expand on this a bit further. So let's just say part 1 to this conversation has now come to an end, and I look forward to part 2. I want to thank you very much for your time this morning, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And I look forward to part 2.
Certainly. I look forward to part 2 as well. Very intriguing conversation, Mr. Figueroa. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Darius Figueroa joining me this morning, social researcher, analyst, author, criminologist. quite a link, quite an expansive conversation in regards to the link between our political nature, our racial tensions here in TNT and racial politics, and that of crime. And certainly, there's a lot of room for expansion. So I'm grateful that we were able to have that introductory conversation this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, let's pause for a break, and upon our return, well, the conversations continue.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN Content Capital.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning. Pretty excited for the next conversation as we speak about Carnival, but the opportunities associated with Carnival. I'm joined this morning by businessman Adrian Schoon, and he's with me in studio. Good morning.
Morning. How are you going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are things?
Things are good for now.
Good,
Put it this way.
good.
Enjoying the weather.
For now.
For now. Hope it's different when Carnival.
Yeah. The sun is a lot right now.
Oh, jeez, boy. Oh, jeez. But Adrian, thanks very much for coming to the studio this morning, and I'm pretty excited for the conversation because every time you think about Carnival and the opportunities associated with Carnival, first of all, I understand that you are in the process of putting forward your band for next year and the build up to that. How's that been so far?
Good. A few months ago, we launched a band called Spirit. We realized that there was a little bit of stagnancy in terms of Carnival, in terms of the product offered, and we also realized that there were a lot of competing markets regionally that were doing new things. When we looked at Jamaica's Carnival, how they have the tourist product, the hotel inventory, it was actually cheaper for the tourists to go there. Also cheaper for somebody coming from America to go to Grenada in terms of the flight cost, the accommodation, and the actual product itself. So we felt like we had to innovate, being the Mecca of Carnival. Everything starts here to offer a new product to be able to capture those tourists coming and incoming visitors.
How easy is it to innovate, actually? Given that we've been in this Carnival mindset for as long as we can remember, of course.
I mean, I think it's I wouldn't say the word easy, but I think that we are so laden with talent here in Trinidad, it's not very hard to find. I think what you have to do is build a bridge and make them feel comfortable. Also make sure that they're compensated fairly, that they feel they're a part of something and share a common vision towards something. I think that those are the key elements that allow you to have a great team. And when that creativity comes into a room, the ideas that are manifested out of that, we could also pave our way for the future. So it's really reaching out to the creative arts community and building a bridge and bringing them into the private sector, showing them value and letting them understand their value.
That talent that you speak of, we're leading with talent, I've heard that so many times before.
Yeah.
You've identified that.
Yes.
But in your process of identifying that, is it your opinion that we have not utilized such talent?
Yeah, I think so too. You have to also understand that, Trinidad is also blessed to also have like energy, gas, right? And that's been our main source of our revenue and our foreign exchange. So sometimes we might turn our back towards some of the creative community. And I think that it's there. I believe that once one or two come across and they start feeling comfortable, they have their own community that they will go back to and say, look over here, we can come here, there's a place here that actually values us. And I think that, it's not hard to find after you have certain pillars in your organization.
So then in that sense, and I've liked how you raised up, we've been blessed with so many other factors here in TNT. How much now of a product could Carnival be? Let's say, for example, like sport. You're pushing your band for next year. What are the opportunities associated with exporting such talent, exporting such creativity to other markets?
Well, I think other markets could learn from us, and they definitely need some of our infrastructure and our IP. You even see some of the designers, popular designers, doing work in the other islands. These are popular designers that came from Trinidad and Tobago. So I think that, there are emerging markets. There's a carnival in Germany. I understand that there's a carnival that's maybe in Amsterdam soon. Japan has a huge following. There's an opportunity by those emerging markets where they really need to require our talent. Now you find Carnival being a year-round business for the creative. So I definitely think it's there because it's becoming more of a global product than anything else.
Now, given that you're pushing for this band for next year's Carnival, would you say that Carnival and TNT is still an emerging market in the sense that there is still a lot more to gain, especially in regards to the profit motive?
I think so. I definitely think so. However, I think that we are in a place that we really need to come together as stakeholders. I think that Carnival it's a little bit prohibitive for foreigners to come to Trinidad now. And you're talking cost there, right? If you look at the cost of the hotel, it's almost $800 a night to stay at a popular hotel, right? You look at the flights, the average flight cost is $1,700. When you add that to your costume cost, your fare cost, food, you look at transport, you're looking at the average consumer spending $7,000 USD to come to Trinidad Carnival for 5 days. Now, any family, anybody that wants a vacation, you can go to Italy for that. You can go to Australia for that. You can go to China. You can go to Mexico for half the price. South America also has some great products and value proposition. So you find that we're becoming uncompetitive here in Trinidad. So you will start to see, in the short term, a reduction in the amount of incoming visitors. And we really need to now get together, both public and private sector, and come together and have a discussion about the cost, the value proposition to the incoming visitor. So I believe that, yes, it can grow, but we are at a junction now where they need to have serious conversation about the cost to the consumer.
How possible do you think those conversations are? Because, I mean, you're a businessman, you would understand that as long as I'm making a profit,
yes,
nothing else really matters to me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're necessarily that way,
yeah,
but that's usually the mindset of a businessman.
I mean, I think there's a way that everybody can win in the ecosystem. You know, that public-private partnership, if you're talking about subsidizing some of the costs for the events, for example, some of these event producers, that savings can be passed on to the consumer. No longer do we have to charge maybe 120 US, but we could probably charge 80 US for some of our events because we're helping with subsidization, maybe reduce costs in some of our inputs, like our venue costs and these things, or our talent. So I definitely think that helps bring down the overall cost. When you look at Caribbean Airlines, there must be a creative way that they can restructure their company and their flights so that they can, you know, offer a cheaper, the air bridge cost will be cheaper. So I think that once the conversation starts and we decide that the common goal, again, is to reduce the cost to the consumer, we can find ways to actually achieve that.
So then looking forward long term, what about the possibility of TNT being an events mecca? Because you're events promoters as well.
We are.
Would you say we are?
Yeah, we are. I mean, I can tell you the events that my contemporaries and myself gratefully put on, I've been all over the world. There's nothing like it. There's no collection of events that are as well produced that is in Trinidad. Of course, you have individual festivals in Belgium. You have Tomorrowland. You have great events in Europe and South America. But the soca music has in it embedded love. It's happy music, right? These other events might be hip hop, it might be EDM, you know, but it's not the love that is evoked. If you bring a foreigner to Trinidad and they absorb our music, within 3-4 days you find them going back, listening to Marshall in the gym, those type of things. We have infectious music. So I feel with the music and the creativity of some of our events, we have Juve parties with paint and powder. I remember Trevor Noah came to an event that I do called Soca Street, and he messaged me after and he said, this is one of the best events I've ever experienced in my entire life. And it's because we have that multicultural element. We have our own music. We have our own style of events in the morning with the sun coming out. I mean, it's just this bonding that we do as Trinidadians in this period of time that I think is magic. You can't buy that. You can't reproduce that.
You can't buy it. You can't reproduce it. So then there's always a lot of thinking and research. And you've certainly done your research, especially in regards to events around the world.
Yes, sir.
But in terms of creating our unique product in TNT, given all that you said, is it that it's there on the plate for the taking?
Yeah, it's there. It's there. I think it's there. I think that we are a special country. I think the private sector is doing everything right. As I told you before, my concern is the cost, right? Because you have, I mean, Grenada's Carnival is excellent. If you've ever been to their Juve, I recommend that anybody that is traveling would go to that Juve because it's art on the road, right? They have depictions of their own political leaders, they have messages, and there's no corporate branding. So when a tourist goes to Grenada's Juve, it's not like you're seeing a big beer company on a truck. It's all natural, and it's family-oriented, and the crime is not there. The crime element is not there in these countries. And I think that's something that also restricts us.
Well, such conversations, do you think they'll happen soon? Like, is that something that you're also pursuing?
Yeah, I think it's necessary for all of us. If we all don't get together and sit around a table and establish some level of some objective, I think that eventually we will lose out to some of the other competing markets.
I've realized in this conversation that you haven't only focused on the business side. You've focused a lot on the social side. You've focused a lot on, even in regards to, as you just said, our historical side, who we are as a people. Is that something that you want to incorporate in your mass as well?
Yeah, I believe that anytime that we start a company with a purpose, right? We don't start a company with the primary intention to make a profit. Because once there's purpose behind anything, then you would find the people that are helping produce, like the team producing, they have a sense of pride. That sense of pride creates efficiency, right, and creates a better product, and the consumer only benefits from that. But without that purpose, that's the blood of the business. There's no meaning to the actual, what is the end goal here? What are we trying to achieve? So I definitely think that in terms of the band, our goal is to really take traditional elements of mass and mix them with the contemporary commercial element. Right? There are bands that are very traditionally oriented, and that's their identity. But our identity is saying, hey, let's not forget our heritage, but let's remix that on the road and make it a lot more palatable for even a younger generation who may not be exposed to the old way of doing things. But this is packaged for them to receive well. And I think it's unique to us. It's our purpose.
You've taken a position, Mr. Schoon, that profit is not only about the financial gain, but it's also about the social heritage, cultural, that you gain as well from it. So, therefore, in regards to Spirit Mass, which you said was launched a couple months ago, what can we expect in 2024 from you and from this band?
I think it's a different style of mass. I think there's a lot of functional solutions that we found. I think the art community is very involved in terms of the presentation. I think for a consumer that's playing with Spirit, I think that even if you've played mass previously in Trinidad or in another island or another continent, I definitely think that you've never experienced a product like this. We have a very unique product in terms of our floats, and we're using that more of a New Orleans style of carnival. We're building these massive floats, but they're also bars as well, so they're functional. They're not only for display, and these floats will also mirror the design of the costume and the carts as well. So when you see as a spectator Spirit, the mass, basically emerging through the streets of Port of Spain, it will tell an actual story. It will be a moving story as opposed to just costumes on the road.
So before we bid farewell, why do you do what you do? I mean, there's a lot of energy from you, a lot of vibrancy, which one could appreciate. But it also sounds like an incredible amount of mind work,
I mean, to me, it's my passion. So it never feels like work. I love sitting down with the creative. I love sitting down with a graphic artist or a designer and just having great conversation about what inspires them. For me, it's when something is your passion, it just never ever feels like a job. So that's why I do it, and I really love soca music. I think soca music is something that you can listen to, and no matter how bad your day is going, it raises your level of happiness in you. And it's our product. It came from us. So as a Trinidadian, you must feel proud of your music and your culture, and I love it. I love the music. And the music for me, it starts everything. Everything starts from a song. I might listen to a song over and over and over, and then I love the song so much. Right now I love Michael Teja's Home, right? And I think when you listen to that song, he talks proudly about being Trinidadian, and that inspires me to create and meet with other creatives. So it really stems, I guess, from our culture and our music.
Really one could appreciate the energy that you're giving off this morning, and of course, even the opportunity that you've seen. And I think the creativity. I look forward actually to Spirit next year because
thank you. You're free to come and shop up.
I might take you up on that.
Okay, no problem.
Mr. Schoon, thanks so much for your time this morning, man.
I appreciate you.
Right? Until next time.
All right, take care.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after these messages.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
The The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
My name is Carl Media, and the founder and the host of ever-increasing voice ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
My name is Carl Media, and the founder and the host of ever-increasing voice ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Here at the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Another oil leak emerges in Faizabad Heritage Petroleum. Elderly Digger Martin couple beaten and robbed. Twigs plead guilty to trafficking marijuana, fined 15,000. And internationally, Kenya's parliament back Haiti mission to deploy 1,000 police officers to Haiti. Now for the details. Heritage Petroleum crews are on site at Oil Well Road, Masahood Junction in Faizabad, addressing a recent oil leak from a 16-inch transmission pipeline that ruptured on Thursday morning. The affected section has been isolated, but reports indicate that thick oil continues to flow into roadside drains, with the spill exacerbated by heavy rainfall. This incident marks the second oil spill in the same area this year. Superior Mayor Dudnand Mirhu expressed concern, stating that the pipeline appears to be compromised. Authorities are actively managing the situation to mitigate environmental impact and address the potential consequences of the leak. An elderly Digger Martin couple was beaten and robbed during the early hours of Wednesday morning. The 86-year-old man woke up at around 5 a.m. to pray and opened the door of his bedroom when he was confronted by 3 bandits, one of whom was armed. The bandits forced the man back into the bedroom and hit his sleeping wife, who is 81 years old, with the butt of the gun, waking her up. The men demanded cash and stole the couple's iPhones, 4 iPads, and their Kia Sportage. The wounded woman was taken to hospital. Officers of the Four Roads police station are continuing inquiries. A 20-year-old man who on Tuesday pleaded guilty before a Sandy Grande magistrate court to a possession of cannabis for the purpose of trafficking was fined $15,000. Omari Williams, also known as Twigs, of Bailey Avenue, Northeastern Settlement, Sandy Grande, was given 6 months to pay the fine or serve 2 years hard labor should he fail to do so when he appeared virtually before Magistrate Sharon Raphael. Williams was one of the 2 men held during a drug block eradication exercise by officers of the Eastern Division Task Force in the Sandy Grande district on November 10th. He was charged with possession of 1.6 kilograms of cannabis for the purpose of trafficking by PC Ambedine. Another suspect, 29-year-old Micaiah Cadet, unemployed off Branch Road, Wallenville, Sandy Grande, was also charged with possession of 69 grams of cannabis. Cadet, who was charged by PC James, was granted bail by a justice of peace and will appear before the court on November 23rd to answer to the charge. Internationally, Kenya's parliament has approved a controversial plan by the government to deploy 1,000 police officers to Haiti to help stop gang violence. This despite a court order barring any deployment, pending the outcome of a legal challenge into the plan. Opposition lawmakers condemned the vote, but the ruling party used its majority to back the government following a fiery debate. Haiti had appealed for international help to tackle growing lawlessness. Kenya's offer won the UN Security Council's approval last month, but the plan has been opposed by the main opposition party. Well, that's it to News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sierra Ali. Thank you for watching.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us this morning. As I get into my last conversation, I'm joined by the chairman of the Progressive Empowerment Party, PEP, Miss Felicia Ola. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on this morning.
Well, thanks so much for joining us this morning. The conversation, of course, surrounds the recent, I suppose the position that Mr. Philip Edward Alexander has taken in regards to no longer being in active politics. It took many of us by surprise, actually, over the course of the long weekend. But in conversations with Mr. Alexander, how long were you aware that these were his intentions, or did this take you by surprise as well?
I was not taken by surprise. I mean, the fact that he went through a decision was a bit surprising, but knowing all that he has been facing in terms of his activism, his politics, the lawsuits that have been weighing on him, I completely understand why he may have reached to a point that he saw that he needed to get out of active politics because it's not for the faint of heart. I have to say, I have been in it for about 7 years. He's been doing this at least 20 years more than me. And in the past 7 years, I would say the onslaught of attacks and victimization and I would say abuse by the legal and justice system has been tremendous. And I think he's done a marvelous job of shouldering that burden, that weight, that responsibility, while I as chairman can sympathize with him, while the party can support him, while our members can rally around him. Inevitably, he is the person that is facing the brunt of this. So his decision, while a bit surprising, was not at the same time unexpected.
But why are we seeing that it's abuse on the part of the justice system? Is it because the justice system has not worked in his favor?
Not because it has not worked in his favor, but it's crazy to think that as a man who is not holding public office, he has been the most sued politician in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. The weight of the judgments that have been meted out against him, I'm not calling names, but there's some people who barely hold names for themselves that have been awarded judgments in record-breaking amounts. And you have to wonder, is the intent really justice, or is the intent to silence and break him? And that's what I feel the justice system has been involved in doing. And I can't speak, at least this is not the platform to speak too in depth on some of the injustices that have been meted out against him. But when you hear the things, when I personally hear some of the things that have been done in some of these legal matters, judges making decisions, a lawyer not, I mean, there was a case of his lawyer not being in court due to a medical issue, and the judge insisted that the matter go on. I mean, there were just so many cases and instances that seemed very onerous and unfair, and unfair seems like a euphemism when you think about it. But none of these matters seemed like a case of justice. They more seemed like cases to silence and overwhelm and burden him. And I know I want to say that I don't think he will be out of politics forever, but definitely as of right now, I know he needs to step back and regroup and think about just where we're heading as a political party. He's not the political leader anymore, but of course he's still here as advice and advisory, in an advisory position. But his reasons for stepping back, I completely understand. And no, I don't think that this was just because it did not break out in his favor. There was definitely a lot more at play. And when a country's justice system can be used against the people that are speaking out and asking questions, because many of these cases is him asking questions. When a country has a justice system that seems hell-bent on silencing you, then you know we're in very, very murky waters.
In that regard, then, are you suggesting that Mr. Alexander was silenced?
Sorry?
In that regard, given all that you said thus far, are you suggesting that Mr. Alexander was silenced?
Was he silenced? No, Philip can't be silenced, and that is what I have to 100% admire about him. But I do think it's an effort to silence him. We have companies that should not be suing. Udicot is a state company. Udicot has a case against Philip right now. I don't understand how a state company, and I mean, when you think about the money that you have to spend in legal fees alone, not just the judgment, I wish, of course, you could take these things all the way to the Privy Council, but it's not what it's designed to do. You're supposed to run out of money so that you can't fight many of these cases on a fair playing field, which, of course, if many of these cases, if you take them to the Privy Council, I'm sure they're going to be dropped. There have been judgments ruled and meted out on the Privy Council that have stated that a state company cannot sue an individual. There have been judgments that say if you're in politics or in activism, that you are exposed to questions and even sometimes what may seem like unfair questions, but you're in politics, and the work of activists and the opposition is to keep asking questions in a public space. And if you're telling people that if I ask a question that may not sit well with you, that I can sue you for defamation, then you're basically telling people that you're not allowed to question what's happening in our political system, and that's a big part of the problem that we're facing right now. People aren't allowed to question some of the madness and the craziness because you have to be afraid of being sued. Right now, this interview that I'm doing, I have no idea who's watching it and who's taking points with it, who might use it against me or Philip or etc. But that's just the system and the country that we live in. Is he silenced? No. Are they trying hell and gung-ho to do it? Yes, of course, but we will prevail.
Well, again, obviously, in that sense or that regard, as we are speaking this morning, what does this now mean for the Progressive Empowerment Party? Whilst there were many out there, and we are to be fair to Mr. Alexander, who actually supported him and actually even praised his stance and at times his trajectory in regards to taking a firm position, there are those who criticize him for being very strong. But in that sense as well, one can argue that he was, of course, the face of the PEP and at times the only individual within the PEP. How does this now affect the party?
Well, of course, he was the most recognized and loudest voice in the Progressive Empowerment Party. And to say otherwise would be lying, and I can't lie to tell you that. But I do have to say, he did groom and I would say teach and train persons under him, which would include his 3 deputy political leaders, Akil Camps, Limmer McLeod Wilkinson, and Marissa Bassad, who have now stepped up or stepped into a shared interim role until we can host an election, which is scheduled for the 9th. Well, we have nominations opening on the 19th of February 2024. And together with myself, we are now forming the new leadership of the party, where our goal and intent is to continue to take the Progressive Empowerment Party forward. What you have in this team are young voices, younger voices, people who may not be as politically experienced as Mr. Alexander was, but definitely not quiet or shy or afraid to speak out. Limmer McLeod Wilkinson has her own and is building her own brand and following. And this weekend, we actually have a meeting of those leaders and members of the Progressive Empowerment Party who want to go forward. Because while he was the face of the party, he was not the PEP. And the PEP is a concept, it's a belief, it's a movement, it's not just one man. And if one man falls out, then definitely this was not a real political party. So my goal as chairman is to continue along with this team to lead us forward, to continue to push the issues, to continue to raise the issues on a national level so that persons who may not have previously been involved in politics can see the attraction of politics and want to get involved, because unfortunately the only way to fix what we are experiencing as a country is through the political system.
Now, you said a couple of things there that I want to break down. Let me start with the attractive side. Given the reasons for Mr. Alexander leaving, and given that he took a very strong position and he was very vocal, again, whatever the case may be, that how attractive now does politics, I mean, given his own stance, his own step back, does that say that politics in TNT is no longer attractive? I understand you have a young group of individuals there, and one can support young people getting into politics and wanting to make a change or be different. But doesn't this show that the political landscape in TNT is not attractive at all?
Well, to be I agree with you. It is not. It is not attractive. The political landscape in Trinidad is not attractive. The Progressive Empowerment Party, on the other hand, is. And Philip, myself, and the others, many of these cases that are being heard right now would have been brought up in the early 2017 to 19, and they're now being heard. But since then, he has, and we have learned a lot in terms of maneuvering around the things that you can see, maneuvering around the justice system. So we've been advised by attorneys, by some of our legal assistants, on how you can go around phrasing things so that these people don't outrightly attack you. And I have to say, the fact that you have to even couch your words is just, it's crazy in itself, but that's what you have to do. I mean, I myself have never been sued, but I've been threatened by people before just for simply asking questions and speaking out on things that I know to be very and 100% true. And even if it's not true, as a politician or an aspiring politician, I have every right to ask questions, particularly when I suspect or see overt wrongdoing taking place. Now, of course, this political landscape is not one that will attract people, but for people who are focused on a better country, for people who want to see justice be served for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, for people who are tired of the same old and want to be involved in change. I myself never thought that I would have been in politics. I came from a very corporate, private sector background, and now I am here, deeply involved in politics. And that's because I know that as much as I am in the cushion of my lovely little private sector job, that what happens on a political level will inevitably affect me. So while that landscape is not in itself attractive, the Progressive Empowerment Party and what we stand for, which is a better Trinidad and Tobago, which is about one people under one flag, this race voting has divided us for far too long, and basically divide and conquer has happened because we the people continue to suffer while those who are hell-bent on dividing us continue to thrive. If you believe in what we stand for, you will definitely join and be a part of this movement. And based on the response from our members, who are of course sad that Philip is leaving, but happy to know that the executive is willing to continue, I do believe that we're still headed in the right direction.
Ms. Holder, to a more personal question, what do you suppose your future in politics is now, at this point in time?
That's a very good and personal question. To be honest with you, at this point, I am going to just continue trying and continue pushing forward. What the future holds, I have absolutely no idea. I never thought that I would have been in politics in the first place. One day can make a difference in this environment that I'm in. Things can happen, somebody can come in, somebody can leave. So much can change, to be honest with you. I am not going to lie, it can become very heavy, it can become very depressing, but ultimately my reasons for being involved remain pure. My reasons for wanting to be a politician are still sincere. So I continue to plod on, I continue to build my brand, my portfolio. It's probably going to have to be catapulted into fast drive now that Philip has left. But I always knew that the strength of the organization could not just rely on him alone, that myself and others who have voices and who are building their voices would need to step in and step up, because inevitably the longevity of an organization can't rely on just one or a few people. We need to continuously be attracting, we need to continuously be training, and I myself am focused on my own personal growth and seeing how far I can take this party as the chairman of the organization.
You used the word there, inevitably. Here in TNT, inevitably, a two-party system exists. We've had third parties that have come. We've had third parties that have stayed but are no longer relevant. We've had third parties that I don't even know what has gone on with them, if they still exist. They still have websites, Facebook pages, and voices, but nothing beyond that. Inevitably, a two-party system exists. Let's just be honest with each other. That being said, how long could the PEP and the executive of the PEP keep this going and keep this up? Whilst I understand that you said there is some level of understanding and acceptance that Philip has now gone, how unified could a young executive of a fairly young political organization keep this path and keep this trajectory and this level of thinking before the possibility of succumbing to this two-party system is inevitable?
Well, I won't use the word inevitable in this case because many stranger things have happened in the world that we would have never expected. We never expected a black man to be president. We never expected Trump to be president. There's so many things that have come out of left field that nobody could have ever predicted. However, it came at a time that the climate and the mindsets and the countries were ripe for that kind of change. So I don't want to use the word inevitable there, because then it would state that we are bound and doomed to be a two-party system forever, which I don't want to believe is going to be true. I don't want to believe that this is going to be our reality for the rest of our lives. And as it pertains to a third party, to this day, I don't think that there has been a third party that has focused on really and truly redeveloping the country like the Progressive Empowerment Party is focused on doing. We had the NAR, we had COP who joined up with the PP, and NAR who did not get much time in office, the COP who that marriage of convenience fell apart. I do believe that they had the right intentions, but I don't think that they all had the staying power that the Progressive Empowerment Party has. And while we have not yet held office like any of those two parties that I mentioned, the fact that we are still around, the fact that we are still alive, the fact that after 7 years I'm here on this interview on WESN means that we hold some form of political relevance. It may be discussing Philip Alexander departing. However, Philip still remains a member and an active part of our organization in terms of his guidance, in terms of his advisory, what he can advise us in. And I do believe that given the right circumstances, given the right opportunity, given the right climate, you never know what can happen in the political landscape. Again, there's so many things that have happened in the world that nobody ever saw happen. Nobody ever saw happening. And the fact that we exist, the fact that we are still climbing, the fact that we are insistent, because this executive team that has taken over, they themselves are committed to taking the organization further. You never know what can happen in the future. You never know if this might be the party to attract the youth, the young people vote. I myself am 35 years old. Other members of the executive are well into their 30s and early 40s. And you never know what can happen. You never know what might happen in the country tomorrow. You never know what might happen in the country today that might warrant a change of minds, a change of hearts. And while it may seem at this time impossible in inverted commas, greater and stranger things have happened. And I believe when things are done with good intentions, there is that great possibility of a positive outcome.
Well, I could appreciate the optimism, and you're absolutely right. Especially as a young individual here in TNT, you never know what can happen. I could only hope that it's nothing too severe or too drastic. But yes, I could appreciate the optimism. But again, coming back to you, removing Philip Alexander from the picture for the moment, and just bear in mind, yes, he's no longer in active politics, but you're right, he has been the subject for the majority of this conversation this morning. And that's because if you realize, even throughout Trinidad and Tobago, PP billboards have his face stamped on it. So if I were to focus more so on the party going forward, as a young individual in politics who never thought that they would even get into politics, and given that you have a young executive as well, an up-and-coming executive, using what you would have just described as the right landscape, the right environment, what are the right factors for such to be achievable, for such change to become a reality?
Well, the divide between the rich and the poor can continue to grow. It can continue to pull people in one side versus another side. The crime rate in the country, even though that's something that I think people have become desensitized about, unfortunately. But I mean, look at what happened with Andrea Barrett nearly 2 years ago. I never thought that we would have 128,000 people signing a petition for the safety of women like we did. I never thought that we would have tens of thousands of people gathered around Woodford Square for 10 nights in a row, or was it 9 nights? For 9 nights in a row. Every night the crowd getting bigger. We had our event in Trigonas. We had an event in San Fernando. I never thought that we would have pulled the masses to that extent. There's never, again, you can never predict what is going to happen. You can never predict what is that one issue that's going to break the camel's back. So I can't say definitively what is going to be that one thing that gets the people to rally around change. But I know I'm a very firm believer in good conquering evil. And for a very, very, very long time, evil has been allowed to run rampant in this country. And there's a saying, gosh, I can't remember the saying, today for you, tomorrow for me, something like that. I can't remember exactly. But I do believe that the time for good people is coming. I do believe that there is something that is going to unify Trinidad and Tobago. We're seeing it. We're seeing little tastes of it along the way. Like I said, we saw that incident with Andrea Barrett when so many people came out to stand up and rally. We never know what's that one thing that's going to unite the people. But at some point, we as Trinbagonians are going to have to see beyond race. We're going to have to see beyond political party. We're going to have to see beyond religion and sexuality and all of those things and realize that at the end of the day, we're all Trinbagonians in the same boat. And that if there's a hole in the boat, all of us are literally going to sink. So what that thing is, I don't know. But again, the optimist in me believes that it will come, it will happen, and we as a country will find that rallying thing to come together around and finally take back our country from the ones who are so motivated to keep us oppressed and depressed as we are.
It is, I know you used the example of Andrea Barrett, and it's very unfortunate that years have gone by and very little is known or understood. But also it's quite remarkable, at the same time very unfortunate, that such an example has to be used in regards to people coming out and taking a unified position against something here in TNT. But before we bid farewell, Ms. Holder, do you aspire to be the political leader of the PEP?
I have never aspired to be the political leader. I know myself, I know my role. Like I said, I come from a corporate, private sector background. My history and background is in literature and human communication. So I study writing, I study words, I study people, how they think, how they speak, how they communicate. I'm very organized in terms of my delivery, in terms of my style. So what I bring to the organization is a sense of, I would say, well, I don't use the same word again, but organization.
Ms. Waller, sorry to interrupt you. That's exactly the kind of change that people want to see, though.
What's that?
The style, the individual that you're speaking about, that organized sort of sense, you know, who you are, self-described at least.
I hear you, and while I will say never, you never know what's going to happen on February the 19th, 2024. You might just find out that Felicia Holder has put her hat in the ring for the leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party. At this moment, though, I can tell you that I am not focused on that. And one of the things I'm going to miss about Philip is that we had a very good working relationship. He was good at setting the political direction and I was good at the execution. So I know what I'm good at. I know my strengths. That's not saying or downplaying what I am or who I can be. However, I do believe right now that my role is more so helping drive the party forward in terms of its operation, in terms of its political directorate, in terms of its administrative and financial directorate, because I'm also the head of finance for the organization and have been involved in raising all of the money that we have raised as an organization to keep us afloat, to keep these lights on in this office, to keep us fighting elections, local, government, general, by-elections. So I know my strengths, and I think that's where the party needs me the most now. should I ever be in a position where I think the party needs or wants me or is calling for me in a different role, such as the political leader role, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. It's never been my political aspiration. But then again, I never thought that I would be involved in politics. So never say never, but at this point in time, I don't see myself vying for that particular position.
Well, I hope you take a progressive stance, not a regressive stance.
What's that, sorry?
I said I hope you take a progressive stance, not a regressive stance, that's all.
I intend to.
Ms. Holder, thank you very much for your time this morning, and wishing you and everyone all the very best in the party, at least. And as I said, yes, one could understand the optimism and one could champion young people being optimistic. However, I hope there's also a sense of reality of the political climate in Trinidad, what that requires, what that entails. But let's see what happens going forward.
Thank you, Keithan, for having me, and please enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. All the best to you. Bye. Chairwoman of the PEP, Felicia Holder, joining me on the program this morning. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this edition of AM Prime. Always a pleasure to have you alongside me. Kind of wondering if Philip Alexander leaving the PEP is not, it's regressive, not progressive. That word just came to my mind right there, then and there. But anyway, thanks so much nevertheless. Wishing you guys a good day ahead and a good weekend ahead, and looking forward to only good things to come. I'm being optimistic myself this morning. But nevertheless, keep safe, keep well, keep strong, keep happy. And I'll see you again on Monday morning. Bye-bye.
WESN. Television has helped tell the story of who we are. Television has captured the ways we celebrate. Television has shown the rich talent of our people.
Happy World Television Day from the Office of the Prime Minister, Communications.
I am Rondell Donowa, and you are watching WESN, the content capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Border guards for protecting our European borders.